Suspense is a radio drama series broadcast on CBS Radio from 1942 through 1962. Production background: one of the premier drama programs of the golden age of radio, was subtitled Radio's Outstanding Theatre of Thrills, and focused on suspense thriller-type scripts, usually featuring leading Hollywood actors of the era. Approximately 945 episodes were broadcast during its long run, and more than 900 still exist. Suspense went through several major phases, characterized by different hosts, sponsors, and director-producers. Formula plot devices were followed for all but a handful of episodes. The protagonist was usually a normal person suddenly dropped into a threatening or bizarre situation. Solutions were withheld until the last possible second, and evildoers were usually punished in the end. In its early years, the program made only occasional forays into science fiction and fantasy. Notable exceptions include adaptations of Kurt Max Donovan's Brain and H.P. Lovecraft's The Dunwich Horror, but by the late 1950s, such material was regularly featured. Alfred Hitchcock Presents. Alfred Hitchcock directed its audition show. This was an adaptation of the Lodger story Hitchcock had filmed in 1926 with Ivor Novello. Martin Grams, Jr., author of Suspense, 20 Years of Thrills and Chills, described the forecast origin of Suspense. On the second presentation of July 22, 1940, Forecast offered a mystery horror show titled Suspense. With the cooperation of his producer, Walter Wanger, Alfred Hitchcock received the honor of directing his first radio show for the American public. The condition agreed upon for Hitchcock's appearance was that CBS make a pitch to the listening audience about his and Wanger's latest film. Foreign correspondent. To add flavor to the deal, Wanger threw in Edmund Gwynn and Herbert Marshall as part of the package. All three men would be seen in the upcoming film, which was due for a theatrical release the next month. Both Marshall and Hitchcock decided on the same story to bring to the airwaves, which happened to be a favorite of both of them. Marie Bellick Lowndes, The Lodger. Alfred Hitchcock had filmed this story for Gainsborough in 1926, and since then it had remained as one of his favorites. Herbert Marshall portrayed the mysterious lodger, and co-starring with him were Edmund Gwynn and character actress Lurene Tuttle as the rooming housekeepers who start to suspect that the new boarder might be the notorious Jack the Ripper. Character actor Joseph Kearns also had a small part in the drama, and Wilbur Hatch, head musician for CBS Radio at the time, composed and conducted the music specially for the program. Adapting the script to radio was not a great technical challenge for Hitchcock, and he cleverly decided to hold back the ending of the story from the listening audience in order to keep them in suspense themselves. This way, if the audience's curiosity got the better of them, they would write into the network to find out whether the mysterious lodger was in fact Jack the Ripper. For the next few weeks, hundreds of letters came in from faithful listeners asking how the story ended. Actually, a few wrote threats claiming that it was indecent and immoral to present such a production without giving the solution. 1942 to 1962. In the earliest years, the program was hosted by the Man in Black, with many episodes written or adapted by the prominent mystery author John Dickson Carr. One of the series' earliest successes and its single most popular episode is Lucille Fletcher's Sorry, Wrong Number, about a bedridden woman who panics after overhearing a murder plot on a crossed telephone connection but is unable to persuade anyone to investigate. First broadcast on May 25, 1943, it was restaged 7 times, each time with Moorhead. The popularity of the episode led to a film adaptation, Sorry, Wrong Number, starring Barbara Stanwyck. Nominated for an Academy Award for her performance, Stanwyck recreated the role on Lux Radio Theatre. Lonnie Anderson had the lead in the TV movie Sorry, Wrong Number. Another notable early episode was Fletcher's The Hitchhiker, in which a motorist is stalked on a cross-country trip by a nondescript man who keeps appearing on the side of the road. This episode originally aired on September 2, 1942, and was later adapted for television by Rod Serling as a 1960 episode of The Twilight Zone. After the network sustained the program during its first 2 years, the sponsor became Roma Wines, and then Autolite Spark Plugs. Eventually Harlow Wilcox became the pitchman. William Spear, Norman MacDonald and Anton M. Leader were among the producers and directors. Suspense received a Special Citation of Honor Peabody Award for 1946. The program's heyday was in the early 1950s, when radio actor, producer and director Elliot Lewis took over. Here the material reached new levels of sophistication, the writing was taut, and the casting, which had always been a strong point of the series, took an unexpected turn when Lewis expanded the repertoire to include many of radio's famous drama and comedy stars, are often playing against type, such as Jack Benny. Jim and Marion Jordan of Fibber McGee and Molly were heard in the episode Backseat Driver, which originally aired February 3, 1949. The highest production values enhanced suspense, and many of the shows retain the power to grip and entertain. At the time he took over Suspense, Louis was familiar to radio fans for playing Frankie Remley, the wastrel guitar-playing sidekick to Phil Harris in the Phil Harris Alice Faye Show. On the May 10, 1951 Suspense, Lewis reversed the roles with Death on My Hands. A band leader is horrified when an autograph-seeking fan accidentally shoots herself and dies in his hotel room, and a vocalist tries to help him as the townfolk call for vigilante justice against him. With the rise of television and the departures of Lewis and Autolite, subsequent producers struggled to maintain the series despite shrinking budgets, the availability of fewer name actors, and listenership decline. To save money, the program frequently used scripts first broadcast by another noteworthy CBS anthology, Escape. In addition to these tales of exotic adventure, Suspense expanded its repertoire to include more science fiction and supernatural content. By the end of its run, the series was remaking scripts from the long-cancelled program The Mysterious Traveler, a time travel tale like Robert Arthur's The Man Who Went Back to Save Lincoln, or a thriller about a death-ray-wielding mad scientist would alternate with more run-of-the-mill crime dramas. The series expanded to television with the Suspense series on CBS from 1949 to 1954, and again in 1962. The radio series had a tie-in with Suspense magazine, which published 1,946-47 issues edited by Leslie Charteris. The final broadcasts of Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar and Suspense, ending at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on September 30, 1962, are often cited as the end of the golden age of radio. The final episode of Suspense was Devilstone, starring Christopher Carey and Neil Fitzgerald. It was sponsored by Parliament Cigarettes. Opening introductions. There were several variations of program introductions. A typical early opening is this from April 27, 1943, The Man in Black, Suspense. This is The Man in Black, here again to introduce Columbia's program, Suspense. Our stars tonight: Miss Agnes Moorehead and Mr. Ray Collins. You've seen these two expert and resourceful players in Citizen Kane, The Magnificent Ambersons, in which Miss Moorehead's performance won her the 1942 Film Critics Award. Mr. Collins will soon be seen in the Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Technicolor film Salute to the Marines. Miss Moorehead and Mr. Collins returned this evening to the First Love, the CBS microphone, to appear in a study in terror by Lucille Fletcher called The Diary of Sophronia Winters. The story told by this diary is tonight's tale of suspense. If you've been with us on these Tuesday nights, you will know that suspense is compounded of mystery and suspicion and dangerous adventure. In this series are tales calculated to intrigue you, to stir your nerves, to offer you a precarious situation and then withhold the solution, until the last possible moment. And so it is with The Diary of Sophronia Winters, and the performances of Agnes Moorehead and Ray Collins. We again hope to keep you in The Man in Black. Suspense. Recognition. Suspense was inducted into the National Radio Hall of Fame in 2011. Satire. The familiar opening phrase, "Tales well calculated to," was satirized by Mad as the cover blurb, "Tales calculated to drive you mad," on its first issue and continuing until issue number 23. Radio comedians Bob and Ray had a recurring routine lampooning the show called Anxiety. The character Commander Neville Putney told stories that were presented as dramatic but were intentionally mundane, with the opening line, "A tale well designed to keep you in anxiety." Theater. For the Poway Performance Art Company, the 70-year-old San Diego actor-director Robert Hitchcock mounted a 2006 stage production recreating Suspense, complete with commercials, in a stage set designed like a CBS radio studio. Partial list of episodes of Suspense: 1940, 1942, 1943, 1944, 1945, 1946, 1947, 1948, 1949, 1950, 1951, 1952, 1954, 1955, 1956, 1958, 1959, 1962 revival. In 2012, John C. Alsadek and Dana Perry Hayes of Blue Hours Productions revived Suspense for Sirius XM Radio, recording all new scripts including originals and adaptations of works by the likes of H. P. Lovecraft, Cornell Woolridge, and Clark Ashton Smith. The Suspense revival is currently airing on nearly 250 radio stations worldwide, and has been nominated for a Peabody Award. Season 1 is also available as video on YouTube. Season 2 is under production, with episode number 25 slated to premiere March 1, 2015. For more information on the Suspense revival, please visit www.bluehouseproductions.com. Since 2007, Radio Classics, on Sirius XM Channel 82, has been airing episodes of Suspense in its daily lineup among other classic shows, such as The Whistler, The Mysterious Traveler, and The Hermit's Cave. The show is also streamed nightly at 7 p.m. Pacific Time on CoosRadio.com from the original masters. Season 1 episodes: Cool Air, starring Adrienne Wilkinson and Amp Darmin Krall. The Pipes of Tchokt Lan, starring Darmin Krall and Amp Rocky Soda. The Return of the Sorcerer, starring Tucker Smallwood and Amp Ron Botita. Proof in the Pudding, starring Adrienne Wilkinson and Amp Christina Joy Howard. The Devil's Saint, starring Darmin Krall and Amp Christopher Duva. Gag Reflex, starring Darmin Krall and Amp Elizabeth Grassen. The Graveyard Rats, starring Darmin Krall and Amp Christopher Duva. An Ungentle Wager, starring Elizabeth Grassen and Amp Adrienne Wilkinson. The Fire of Ashurbanipal, starring Christopher Duva and Amp Steve Moulton. The Walls Between Us, starring Adrienne Wilkinson and Amp Rocky Serda. The Hauler, starring Christopher Duva and Amp Elizabeth Grassen. Essence, starring Dana Perry Hayes and Amp Skylar Caleb. The Hounds of Tinderloes, starring Christopher Duva and Amp Darmin Kral. Madeline S. Vale, starring Dana Perry Hayes and Amp Rocky Serda. Wet Saturday, starring Darmin Kral and Amp Adrienne Wilkinson. Forest of the Dark Unbound, starring Catherine Kamei and Amp Elizabeth Grassen. Who Goes There, starring Steve Moulton and Amp Sean Hackman. De Vermis Manorum, starring Elizabeth Grassen and Amp John Lauver. The Night Reveals, starring David Collins and Amp Susan Eisenberg. Ebb Tide, starring Christopher Duva and Amp Adrienne Wilkinson. Far Below, starring Darmin Kral and Amp Catherine Kamei. Behind Every Great Man, starring Brett Thompson and Amp Adrienne Wilkinson. Pigeons from Hell, starring Scott Henry and Amp Daniel Hackman. Red Rook, White King, Black Cat, starring Adrienne Wilkinson and Amp David Collins.